Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you to all of you
who recommended.
Zingerman's.
Is it Zingerman's?
We went to the Roadhouse.
We went to the Roadhouse right before we came here. Amazing. My parents, Jane and Steve Young, and my partner, Kat Flanagan, are here with me today.
And the animal. So yeah. and book signing.
whatever else, and book
I'm
signing.
I'm going to read from the very end of the book, the section titled A Love Letter from Me. And so this is from me to all of you, to the Burned Haystack community. So it starts to the Burned Haystack community, and especially to those of you who've been here since the beginning. Right? Wow, right? Who knew? I did not know. And neither did you. And that did not stop you from showing up to talk about feminist applied rhetoric on Facebook with strangers. But we didn't feel like strangers. Even as the number of members has skyrocketed, the Burned Haystack community still feels tight-knit. It feels like a group of sisters and friends. I saw so many of your faces coming in tonight. It was like seeing like you know that person, but you're not sure where from because everybody looks just a little bit different than they do on Facebook. So it's really cool to be here in person. And I realized, I'm back in the text now, I realize what I just said sounds cheesy. I am not a sentimental person, and I have no tolerance for false intimacy or fake friends. I've built this entire method on those facts about myself. So I can only believe that the reason this community feels so right and so real is because it is, in fact, right and real. This book would not exist if it weren't for you. There would not have been a book to write because there would not have been a story to tell. There might have been a method, yes, and it might have been mildly interesting to other rhetoricians to read about an unorthodox application of critical discourse analysis in some articles published in some dusty journals somewhere, but that's not a story. We are the story. We're a group of women initially unknown to one another, with a clear and sober recognition of a societal problem that was getting almost zero productive attention. Public scholarship has been a thing for a while now. Academics sharing their expertise beyond the walls of the academy, people accessing platforms such as Instagram and TikTok to learn from them. That's wonderful, but this community, the Burned Haystack community, has taken it up several notches. It's one thing to seek new knowledge and be open to its implications. It's another thing altogether to dedicate the time and effort to learning something like critical discourse analysis, an obscure graduate-level sub-discipline of academic rhetoric, so well that you can literally teach it to other people, to strangers. Many of you have been doing that for quite a while now. And it's not only brilliant to be able to do that, it's generous and generative, and it's kind. It's an act not only of intelligence and patience and curiosity, but of love. This is what I witness daily in the Burned Haystack community. Unfailing generosity of spirit, of knowledge, and of collaboration. Lots of laughter. This community is razor sharp intellectually, but it's also knee-slapping hilarious. I built humor into Burned Haystack intentionally. It then continued to happen organically because this group is so funny in the way that only a group of women who've been through some serious shit can be funny. And tenacity. When we found out that Fumble, I have to say that for legal reasons, when we found out that Fumble was continuing to send men whom we'd blocked to our profiles, you didn't just get angry, you took to social media right alongside me and didn't relent until we got a public apology from the dating app and ended up in Rolling Stone. Agreed, that is super badass of all of us. And finally, thank you. Thank you for being willing to listen and talk about all of this. Thank you for being patient with me while I figured out how to be a social media person. Thank you for helping me and guiding me when I needed help and guidance. And thank you for buying and reading this book. The Burned Haystack Project is now a social feminist movement that's taken on a life and an energy of its own. And I'm so excited for all of us to see what happens next. Thank you. Oh. Okay, so to that point,
just a few ideas to talk about today, which I'm kind of calling Burned Haystack 2.0. And I intentionally dropped the dating, because it's definitely going beyond dating now. I think a lot of us are using it beyond dating. And so I wanted, the way I'm talking about it going forward to sort of like be its own thing with its own ethos and its own spirit that's sort of like understood by those of us who are here in ways that we can apply it beyond dating. So let me go to the next slide here. I think there's only 4 slides, maybe 5. It won't be like a boring PowerPoint, I promise. Okay, I guess I don't know how to do that. Somebody from the library. I'm hitting the forward arrow. Do I have to aim it somewhere different? Do what? We tested this before and it worked really well. So I know this is me. Is there another way to just advance it? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now forward arrow. Okay, all right. Okay. Yay. All right, so first and maybe most importantly, the access mission of Burned Haystack is going to remain intact. Like I built the whole thing for free intentionally, knowing that the content would be sold and a bunch of male dating coaches on Instagram would make tons of money off of me, and that's happening. And I knew it was going to happen, and like it's fine. It's not fine theoretically, but the means justifies the ends, sort of, right? Like it's worth it to deal with some of that, or to just completely ignore it for the sake of being able to share it openly with everyone who wants it and needs it. So the Facebook group is going to remain as too, which some of you may have seen recently. I've been kicked out twice in the last month. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to keep it on Facebook. I hope that Facebook will keep it on Facebook, but what I've learned is I have zero control over that. And if I hadn't had HarperCollins' social media team, it would be over. I think the group would be gone. They really sort of swooped in and advocated on behalf of all of us. So Facebook is dicey and getting dicier and getting more politically conservative, which is a problem for groups like ours. But as long as I have a say, it's going to stay up on Facebook where all the free content already exists. Substack, I have complete control over, and I'm going to keep putting everything in front of the paywall on Substack, and Instagram, which is also a meta platform. So who knows? But the spirit of the public scholarship project is going to remain. That said, there's going to be for people who want other options. So I wanted, and this is the first time I've talked about this publicly at all, and none of it's written in stone yet. But I wanted to give you an idea of what I'm thinking about doing, and I'm curious to hear feedback too. So I guess that's on the next slide. Let me say while I'm here, social action. A lot of you know that this methodology is being used quite a bit now in treatment and recovery for coercive control, toxic narcissism, religious abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault centers with neurodivergent people. So it's gone in a lot of directions that I didn't foresee, when I was just trying to game the apps. Yeah, thank you. And to me, that's, definitely one of the most exciting things about this project. And so I'm trying to decide, I don't have expertise in all of these areas, obviously, but I'm very ready and willing to work with those who do. So I'm starting to try to partner with organizations that make sense to do that. I met last week for the first time with the 2 women who head up domestic violence support group and recovery at Langley Air Force Base. So that's like a large platform. Their people are incredibly well qualified and educated, and I'm anxious to forge more connections like that. So what we're working through right now is, and this is all new to me, is a lot of the inherent problems of sharing this kind of academic methodology with a group of people who are like in a sort of intense bad moment right then, right? So you're dealing with women who are actively in, maybe still trapped in trauma, have just exited trauma. And so resources are a problem. Mental bandwidth is a challenge. So a lot of what we've been talking through is how do we take, I mean, we get into in-depth discussions, right, in the Facebook group. You all know that they go very deep, and we have like multiple angles of expertise coming at it. What I'm really interested in now is like how can this be packaged in a way that's even more accessible, like to help make it either more palatable or just more memorable or more relatable for people who, you know, aren't necessarily doing it for the intellectual stimulation that sometimes we do that in the group, right? Or humor or whatever. This is sort of a different approach. So starting to have talks with people about that, and I'm not sure how far that's going to go or in how many different directions, but I'm going to do what I can to you know, assist that. Okay, this is probably what's going to happen next. Also, I made a QR code for the first time today while sitting on a hotel bed. Right? And it worked. So I'll explain that in a second. But anybody familiar with the platform circle? Everyone in the community can Yeah. See, this is why this community is awesome. This is exactly how the Facebook group goes, right? Like, yeah, yeah. All right, so this is no commitment. This just means you're telling me you want to be in the first invitation group to this new platform. And it is going to be paid because the software is incredibly expensive to run it, but I'm going to keep it low. I haven't figured out all the details, but they'll be there. Okay. This is just for fun and entertainment, and I'll only take a couple of minutes with it. But we've talked a lot about pets in Burned Haystack, right? We've even gotten into like the rhetoric of animals and introducing animals and what can you tell about a person through their embodied rhetoric and how they interact with their dog or whatever. And so we were at breakfast at the Hen this morning. My parents and Pat and me, and I think my dad came up with this idea and said, you should write a children's book. So then we started thinking, well, how would you do that? How would you make Burned Haystack into a children's book? But I am frequently asked for ideas about how can we teach this content specifically surrounding things like boundary recognition and protection to young people, especially young women. So then we came up with the idea that it could be about the animals who have very distinct personalities. And Jolene in particular is very good at boundaries, violently good at boundaries sometimes. Yeah, and those are her brothers / friends / enemies at times. No, they're not enemies. You can see they're fine. So that's Clancy in the foreground. He's the younger dog, and Rudy in the background. And then Jolene, who's taken over their bed and doesn't only lets them lay in certain places on it or they get hissed at. But we thought I have no idea if anybody would want this book. I haven't even mentioned it to my agent or my editor. Again, I'm trying to like glean people's interest. But it could be really funny. It could be very snarky. And I said, as we were driving away from the Hen, or walking away, I can't remember where we were going, I said, it's not going to be like that cutesy humor in most children's books. It's going to be vicious humor. And my mom goes, vicious humor for vicious children. And I was like, yes, that's what it's going to be, vicious humor for vicious children. But the lesson will be stuff that's really important, right? Stuff that we want children to learn when they're young, before they, endure what too many people our age have endured. So middle school girls, yeah. Even upper elementary, don't you think? I feel like that, yeah. Pat teaches middle school, and I'm always shocked by how some of his students look 9, and some of them look 21. Yeah. So, yeah, but I think you're right, like somewhere in that wide age range. So, yeah, maybe not the preschool set, which I probably should not be writing for anyway. But, yeah, something closer to that age. So, anyway, my tentative title, which is getting cut off, so I'll read it, All the Good Animals and the Mystery of the Burning Haystack. This is all we know, but we're constantly making up these subplots and narratives about the animals and their issues, and so I just thought I'd share it as a brainstorm. Okay, that's the end of that. So I guess I'll just leave that. I'll leave the flame there. So we're about half hour in. I'd love to transition to Q&A if people have questions, and then we will go to book signing. So I don't know, you do have a mic. Oh, good. I'm sorry, you what? You're streaming. Oh, okay. But do you want people to just call out questions or?
Yeah, we're going to come around.
Yeah, okay. We'll come around with the microphone. You raise your hand.
Okay.
All right. So
it's like we got one in the front right here.
I'm going to jump right in.
Yeah.
Off. It still says, oh, there you go. I was going to say, it still says it's on. So I am a high school special ed teacher.
Okay.
And the more I read your book, the more I recognize how many high school boys tried to give me a directive as their teacher.
Oh,
and so just today, I received a text on my cell phone, which I try not to give out my cell phone number because the district doesn't pay for it. We're not going to get into the Ann Arbor situation. It's not good. But I realized this young man was texting me about a final exam today, and he was very disciplinary directive telling me what I was going to do. So the way that I responded, I'm not sure if it was my best way of responding, I held in the snark.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. I held in the sarcasm.
Yeah.
And what I posed back to him is, I need some clarification. Are you asking for my support, or are you simply informing me? But I don't know if that was the best way to handle it. But
Yeah.
at least in that respect, then, he then had to say, will you please blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But if you have any other way to respond to these high school males who very often give us directives, I would love to hear advice.
Yeah. I mean, that's really tough because obviously in a dating application, we're just done, right? Like radio silence on that, which you don't have the option to do at work. And this applies across the board, right? Like we've all had colleagues that we'd like to block and burn, but like really don't have that option. I think the important rhetorical move, and it's one you made, is to stop the progression of what's going on and to cause a reroute. Because that alone does something, right? Like it forces thinking that wasn't happening before. So I think that was highly effective. Yeah, for sure. I think another thing you could do, if you wanted to be, and this would depend on sort of the, maybe not only the developmental stage, but the capabilities of the person you're dealing with. If you wanted to sort of offer even less guidance, and maybe this is more of like a colleague situation than a student situation, couple different options. One I used myself for entertainment at work, so I'll save that one, but it does work. But I think you can say, would you like to try that again, a different way? And just leave it at that and let it be silent. The other thing I've done in meetings sometimes, and this makes everybody uncomfortable, but I think awkwardness can be very powerful. Like, especially if you're willing to sit in the silence that you've just created yourself with the awkwardness. So what I said in a meeting recently to a colleague, I don't even remember what he said, but like, trust me, he's a problem. I said, first of all, I disembody it and put it in third person, so it's not even obvious who I'm addressing, except that everybody knows. And I said, sometimes I find that adults are really immature and ineffective, and it just makes me really uncomfortable and feel really bad for them. And then I just sat there. And that does reroute the conversation. Now, I work in a profession where I have some protection, thank God, or I'd be, out the door. And I realize that's not the case everywhere. And, I've had a lot of other jobs where I was not a tenured professor and had to bite my tongue a little bit more, in which case I'd probably go with option one. But I think what you did was great, especially in the moment when you don't, that's the hardest application. I think you did well, yeah, yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Come on, share your answer.
Yeah.
So the one block to burn that I struggle with,
Okay.
and this is going to sound so stupid at first, but just give me a second, is the introduction of, hey, beautiful. And
Yeah.
it's not because I'm flattered by it at all, because I'm not.
Okay.
And it's not because I think it's original, because it's not.
Right.
But it's because I have had I have had online relationships come from conversations that have started that way, before, like pre-Burned the Haystack, pre-everything.
Yeah.
And they didn't end badly, and they didn't end in any way that had to do with being superficial or my looks or anything like that.
Okay.
And I can't say that I regretted not blocking them. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's still one that I'm like,
Yeah.
like I can't do it right away.
Right.
But I very much am. I'll give them kind of like a second chance, almost but they're on the edge. Like, it's very much like,
Yeah.
what do you say next?
They're on
then
probation.
yes, it's like you
Yeah.
have the second chance, and then you have to bring me something
Yeah.
very cool or interesting or something on the second message, and then that kind of will determine whether I engage. But I still just struggle with that immediate block to burn on that first one. I just wondered what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that, first of all. And, this applied rhetoric, it's not a hard science. it's a theoretical methodology, which means that there's always going to be exceptions, right? And people ask me all the time, are you ever concerned that you're so strict and so restrictive that you're going to miss good matches? And that's your concern, right? Like if I'm, too hard on this one metric, I might miss someone good. And so, like, to be very honest, like, yes, that could totally happen. It's completely possible that I am so, and I'm talking about me, but like me representing application of the method. It's totally possible that I would be so strict and so restrictive and so ruthless and brutal that I would miss good matches. I think the chances of me either wasting a lot of time or ending up in a bad situation are still 100 times higher. And so all of life is a calculated risk, right? You have to decide where you're willing to take risks. My personal decision was I would rather miss out on what I see as an outlier potential of meeting a good guy than risk ending up in a bad situation. So that's how I parse it. All I can tell you is that over time, and again, it hasn't been that, this project started in 2023. This is very new science, so it's hard we can't draw long-term conclusions because the time hasn't happened yet. What we keep finding is that men who lead with any comment about appearance, regardless of what it is, don't tend to work out as long-term monogamous partners. So you've had not bad experiences with your beautiful guys, but they also haven't turned out to be the guy, right? Now, is it to do with that? Right? Who knows? Like, that's a complicated thing to answer. But I guess I'm trying to be careful in how I answer your question because I don't want to make it appear that I have knowledge that other people don't have. I have exactly the same amount of knowledge that those of you who've been in the group for a while have, which is that we've got this, what critical discourse analysis and Burned Haystack methodology in particular is what's called grounded theory. And grounded theory is an inductive process. So let me explain that. In the hard sciences, so say if somebody's doing cancer research or something, right? They're doing controlled studies across a large population, and then they're crunching those down to narrow conclusions. That's a deductive process. Grounded theory is philosophical, and it's developed by bringing in other sort of life realities, whether that's women's own reported narratives, analogous life experiences. We've learned a lot from abuse victims, and sort of like coming to some philosophical conclusions that we then test. So that's the inductive process, where we go from like this theory to practice. And then the next step is you start asking, does it bear out? So if I say, the men who lead with comments about your looks, they're no good, that may or may not be valid grounded theory. Like, the theory might seem grounded based on, whatever, my expertise and research. But until women start coming back and saying, yeah, that's true. Like, everything seemed fine, except he had a lot to say about what I wore, and then it got really bad. And that's not the same example, but that's when that sort of grounded inductive theory comes full circle and starts strengthening. Is this making any sense at all? Okay, so it's hard to answer in a scientific way. I also think, what are the stakes of giving the you're beautiful guys one chance? They're not that high, right? Like, if they're really going to be a problem, you're going to know pretty soon. So I would say if you're not comfortable with, calling it out at that point, then don't. and see how you kind of shake out over time. Another thing about grounded theory is that it's sort of intended that you take it and make it your own. I mean, we have a lot of people using Burned Haystack for polyamorous relationships, which I never saw coming, I have no experience with. I don't want to pretend I'm any help in it, but the women in the community who are using it for that are telling me it's working. So then, it's kind of like just how it works. Does that help any? Okay, long-winded answer. There's one back there. Yeah, and then, yeah. I'll let the people with the microphones choose. Yeah. This is how I talk in class, too, and I was reading student evaluations a couple semesters ago, and one of my students, and I know who he was because he's really funny, he said, so Dr. Young, in a lot of my classes, I make a game of trying to get my professors off topic, but I never have to do it with you because I know you'll do it on your own. And I'm not sure that was a compliment, but it was funny, yeah.
Jennie, first I want to say thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Yeah. Following what you were just talking about, is there perhaps a possibility that maybe an annual conference where people present these new arenas into which they've gotten data about the method?
I like that idea a lot, and it's something I've been talking about recently, right? Weren't we talking about that on the way back from Denver? We had plenty of time to talk, driving Denver to Wisconsin and back. I've thought about conferences. I've thought about weekend retreats. I'm not normally like an events planner kind of person. I know there are. And so, that would be another project of finding those people and sort of figuring out how it would all work. But I like the idea, but especially sort of, we had, okay, where's Jamie? There you are. And was anybody else in Sheboygan we had a really small regional conference in Sheboygan, which wasn't a Burned Haystack conference, but there were a lot of haystackers there. And that format worked well, right? Because there were other sessions that fed into it. That might be something for the future. It's definitely something I'm considering. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
First of all, I want to say that I think you're incredible.
Oh, thank you.
I totally appreciate you.
Oh, thank you.
I would love to be a student in your class. I am, kind of, but I'm not dating because F that right now, but I am applying it all the time in different ways because I'm the type of person that used to write million, like a novel for an email that could have been 2 words. And I really had to simplify. I was an educator for 25 years. I taught Spanish. And I cannot nerd out enough about language building, the actions that we have that we pair with what we're saying or how we're communicating it. And so that is what really struck deep for me with this is a few of my friends have been permanently fired because it's just like, well, you're not even on a dating app and you're doing this shit, so bye. And I also wanted to say in response to having a hard time with a certain Hello Beautiful. Mm-hmm. First of all, I think we all deserve something a little bit more clever than that, a little bit more thought of. And for me, it's not so much about the person saying it, it's about me breaking down what is built in me, right? To accept something not clever or to accept something so generic. So that's kind of my approach with this, because it does feel a little hard to be like, oh, I'm going to be rude. No, that's my people pleasing, and I don't.
Right.
I quit doing that. Now I get paid for people pleasing. So, I just wanted to say that everything kind of strikes a chord with me, and I do follow. And it took me 6 months to listen to my neighbor who was like, "You really need to do this." She watched my last relationship completely unfold. He packed and moved while I was at work. It was like, "Hey, good morning. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving," and left me with the dog, left me with all this stuff. And so she kept saying, Go to this, pay attention to this. I'm like, I'm never dating again. I don't care. I've got plants, I've got cats, now I've got this dog. So, and I'm a small business owner, photographer, I do all kinds of things, and I really need to be able to apply short-windedness and instantaneous recognition of bullshit. And I feel like that's what this community is helping each other do, and I love that, you know. But I just want to say cheers to you for doing this and for being an excellent educator and finding one. I'm completely invested in this, and I think it's awesome. So
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for those words.
Is she calling us?
Oh, yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here. I haven't read the book, so I'm just going to opine about it. Just
Okay.
but I've watched every single reel, and I first wanted to say I'm defending my dissertation on Monday.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's really
Good luck.
fun,
Good
thank
luck.
you. But it's like so cool to see someone make academia useful. No shade to other academics.
Yeah.
So like, thank you for modeling that and like really doing public scholarship. Excuse me. I also was curious, like I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about the other methods that you're thinking about or the other places you're thinking about applying it. I'm especially thinking about like, I don't know, I just kind of feel like I'm like a hetero-fatalist. I'm just like done with that.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about thinking about like in academia in particular, like like in the workplace, like I'd love to hear you talk more about how you apply that. And especially around age and gender dynamics, I'd love you to help me help academic men stop talking to me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I'd love to hear more about how you apply it broadly, yeah.
Believe me, if I had figured that out, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of just at the beginning of all of that, but I do expect I'll have more to say about it. Yeah, I do teach. I teach a course titled "The Rhetoric of Dating and Intimacy" at my university to undergraduates of all genders, and there is reason to hope. And I know there's a lot of reason to be concerned too. But there are a lot of very liberal, progressive Gen Z men that, now granted, they're the ones who sign up for a class titled "The Rhetoric of Dating and Intimacy." But I do think. I hope we're, maybe seeing some light around rhetoric and sort of discourse in all of those areas. And good luck on Monday. Here in town at University of Michigan, what can you tell us what your dissertation's on? Oh, okay, all right. Good luck, yeah. You'll do great. They don't let you get to defense if they think there's a problem, yeah.
Me? Okay. First of all, Jenny, thank you so much for writing what I think should be the Cadillac of all dating app books.
Thank you.
And sorry for my rhetoric, but this is mechanical engineer, 65-year-old woman. So maybe I should say gold standard of dating app books. Okay.
Thank you.
For another metaphor. But we've talked a lot about when we get, hey, gorgeous, hey, sexy, introductions from men.
Yeah.
And I totally disregard them, especially when they come from guys that are 29 and 30 and 42, and I'm old enough to be their mom, by many decades. But what about when a man puts in his sexual expectations and preferences inside his about me, in his summary of me, and like, I can read it out loud to you, the one that I'm questioning.
You don't need,
I mean, it's not anything dirty. It's like, she wants a woman to be active and retired like me and able to travel like on a drop of a dime, which I am able to do.
Okay.
And so I'm empty nested, and my last dog died and I did not get another one, so I am really truly able to just pick up and go now. But, he was very specific about not wanting to talk on the phone, so I'm a cop's daughter. I'm also very specific about my self-protection, and I had many of these safety standards in place prior to your book being written, which was, I would always find out the man's name.
Yeah.
I would always find out, and I would look them up, and it saved me from a lot of trouble. I found many men with very felony counts, felony assault with less than murder, jail, escaping from jail, all kinds of pornography, child sexual predators, and that has saved me a lot of time and hassle. So, but this one guy's like, I don't like to talk on the phone. I'm like, well, okay, so I'll text you, but here. So, I texted him, and he ignored 2 texts in one day and replied back the next day because he said, we should get together for a drink, which I thought was pretty just normal. And I said, sure, but it's a lot easier if we get off the app and have a phone number, and we can then very easily, I know you don't like to talk on the phone, but it's easier to arrange a place and a time because we are about 30 miles apart. And so he ignored that, and then he just popped up this morning or this afternoon saying, how about 3:30 this afternoon? And I'm like, sorry, I'm going to be out of town.
Yeah.
Right? And but how do you feel about when they tell you what they expect in their app? Like here's somewhere I want to feel about my partner, somewhere between she really turns me on or this woman is going to be the death of me.
Yeah. If they're in the universe of any of the things you just said, game over. The rhetorical signaling with all of that, whether it's disregarding, your comfort with a mode of communication or telling you what his expectations are for you, this, person whom you've never met, all of that is signaling boundary violation, presumptuousness, I'm the prize behavior, disciplinary directive. And remember, it's disciplinary directive even if it's not, someone doesn't have to be yelling at you to be in disciplinary directive mode. If he's saying, I want a woman who will do this and this and this, that's disciplinary directive because that's a tacit list of instructions for you. And that's just inappropriate with strangers. And whereas with the hey beautiful thing, I was kind of like being cagey and couching my response. No, none of this, absolutely not. Yeah, first sign of any of that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's just no way that goes anywhere good. Yeah. Yeah, you don't, yeah. That's good that you're not meeting him. Yeah. Hi.
I wanted to say thank you. I feel like you're a life changer.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But one of the ways you helped me most is I was having some major struggles at work with an abusive boss, and I took your class and I applied everything to, how to talk to this person who was mistreating me. And I think you have some great wisdom in boundary setting when you're being mistreated. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking specifically about the chair story, like you put the gross chair and you put a sign, like I'll put a sign on it. Yeah. But I was just hoping that you would consider for your future 2.0 to help us with more of that. I think so many of us are raised pleasers.
Yeah.
And when people are out of line, I just kind of shut down. I'm so shocked that someone is behaving in such a terrible way. And you just have these witty, brilliant responses, just like the story you gave earlier. Is that something that you might be able to incorporate into future teachings?
Yeah, I'm sort of assuming, and I haven't really pursued this in any formal way yet, but I'm assuming that if I write the next book, which I very much want to do, it'll be rhetoric in real life that will apply, a lot of the methodology to these exact scenarios you're talking about. That it'll take a lot more research, I think, to do that, just because of the discourse norms and variations that occur across different disciplines, right? I know academia very well. When I was younger, I knew architecture and engineering really well because that was the field that I worked in for the first 10 years after I graduated from college. But I probably don't anymore because those things change over time too. So I'm going to need to do enough research to sort of understand how can we draw conclusions across these very disparate domains in a way that'll be useful to everybody. I'm always impressed with how people like those of you in this community are doing it quite naturally, right? No matter what capacity you work in, or if you're applying this with, family or neighbors or exes or whatever, people who've sort of internalized the methodology seem to be able to do that fairly seamlessly. And so I find that encouraging. But I also want to give a little more thought to, how can we be more concrete in talking about its application in specific workplaces. Does that sort of answer your question? Okay. Okay, yeah, it's something I'm definitely thinking about a lot. Hi.
Hi. Taking it back to dating, because probably a lot of us got to you because of the whole dating thing, and we all know it's really rough out there. How do you know if you're ready to even do this? If you're ready to date, you're looking at it, you're tired, it seems like a lot of work. Is that a sign that you're not actually ready to date, or is that just a consequence of nonsense?
Well, I mean, it's a totally valid consequence of nonsense, right? I think it depends on what your goals are. And also in sort of like how that feeling manifests. So we were talking about this in the Facebook group a couple of days ago, where one of the group, the original poster said, "I feel really afraid to date. Should I just," and she'd been in a bad situation, should I just push through it? To that, I would say no. Like, I would give that some time. If it's straight up boredom and frustration, both of which are totally reasonable responses to being on the dating apps, but you still want to meet, do you want to meet someone? Like, is that a goal? Then the best advice I can give you is the advice I gave myself, because I took a long break from the dating apps when I was kind of building this project, and I was not super inspired when I got back on the apps, but I had sort of told people I would, so I'm like, I gotta do this, I guess. and I didn't even really care at that point whether I met someone, because I was like having more fun being in the Facebook group. And so I just decided I'm going to make it completely academic, at the beginning. Plus, I felt, like a professional obligation to do that. And I was so strict and so ruthless that it didn't take much time. It didn't take much of my time at all, because I just was barely engaging. I mean, I went out in my totality of round whatever it was on the dating apps last summer. I went out on one date. And that was Pat, yeah. And I got very close with several others and then disqualified them for a variety of valid and ridiculous reasons. Like, one guy was just using too many exclamation points. And in my mind, I'm like, there must have been something else. But that was all I could really pin it on. But then I decided that was valid. And I went on this whole grammatical deep dive. I looked up somebody did some research on the intersection of exclamation point usage and IQ. I don't think it was valid at all. It didn't sound valid, but in the moment I was like, yeah, but I shouldn't take the chance. And so, I was really ridiculous about it, but I still ended up meeting somebody. So yeah, I think just, you can be on the apps and be very much in control of your time, because you don't feel like looking at it, just don't look at it, right? And don't interact with someone unless you genuinely find him or really compelling. That'd be my best advice. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go up on the dating too, because I did online for 15 years.
Wow.
And all of my friends kind of followed me as entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
And said they couldn't do it. And I got to kind of decoding a little bit. And it was phenomenal when I got introduced to you, because I could point all of my single friends in that direction and go, here is what I'm seeing. Here's why it's important of what I'm reading between all of these lines.
Yeah.
Because you really can't take at face value what these things say. And over the years, I've learned people don't understand themselves well enough to honestly represent who they are either.
Yeah.
So I guess my question to you, I love the idea of in-person and groups and things like that. Would you be thinking of doing almost like a train the trainer and have somebody who would lead those who works with you and talks to you to get a little bit more of your expertise?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. And it's one I've thought about in various applications. Maybe. Yeah, there's so many things I want to do, and I just know I'm not gonna have time to do all of them, so I'm gonna have to kind of pick and choose. But that is one that I like for its sort of community knowledge building effect. So thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, I'll keep thinking about it.
So, got room for one more question, but when you're waiting in line, getting your book signed, you can still have a chat.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
I want one of you to.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
So I'm on the dating apps, but just like I've kind of been taking some time on and off, but I've ran into something that I'm not sure if it is a pattern. So if I missed it, sorry, because I'm still familiarizing myself with all the patterns. But a lot of men, like the flow of the conversation, it typically will be like, how was your day? How was your lunch? How was work? How was your night? And then we'll have a decent conversation, but then it tapers off, and then the next one, hey, how was your day? How's your night? Like, okay, is this how we begin conversation? Yeah, good times 500. Like, I don't want to keep saying the same thing. So it's like, what is your analysis on men who start conversations like this, and it just kind of keeps circling back to that type of thing? Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't want to be friends with someone like that, right? Like if you met that person at a party just as like a female friend or something, that's not going to go anywhere even in that capacity. I mean, I think what's and the reason you're hearing so much like giggling and laughing is because we've all had a lot of these conversations, right? Which is like totally pointless. I think these are the men who've paid attention just enough to understand that they're supposed to ask questions, but they don't really care, right? Like, that's not how curiosity sounds. And you only want to date someone who's genuinely curious about you. Yeah. It's a bummer, but I'd cut it off,
Because so many men, that's like their go-to. Like, I feel like it's very low effort, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like the 10 guys I've matched with, this is what like all of them are doing.
I know.
Like, what the heck?
It's a widespread problem. Yeah. But I don't think you need to entertain it. I think that's hard because you think, well, he's not really doing anything wrong. Right? He's not being offensive, but I consider aggressive boredom to be offensive. So I think it's okay to be offended if you're really bored. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a good note to end the talk on. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jenny.